This is a Dodge Cummins 12 valve. I'm in the process of removing this injection pump, and further disassembly is also underway. So far the AC compressor, alternator and bracket, and the clutch fan has been removed off the front. This clutch fan has a big nut right here, 1 7/16, and it's reverse thread. And when the serpentine belt was still in place, and I could get that wrench in behind here, and I knocked it this way and was able to loosen that off, and that's how that clutch fan comes off. So there's a nice puller available online. When this oil filler is removed, can get in there nicely with that little puller and separate the press fit drive gear off of the pump. So I don't have that little puller, so in my case I'm going to be removing this timing cover, which I wanted to do anyways, and then I'll use my own puller to separate that drive gear off of the pump. So up next we'll be removing the damper and this clutch fan support, and that should get me well on the way to removing this timing cover. So before I start disassembling anything, I got my feeler gauge out here, and I took a measurement between the sensor and the damper just for future reference. I was having a look at the end of the crankshaft here where the seal runs. So where the outer lip of the seal runs, there's a wear. I can feel a bit of a ridge there. But where the inner lip of the seal runs, there it's actually quite nice still. It's nice and smooth. And I suspect there's a little bit of wear there, but it's difficult to detect. So I don't think that that's going to be a problem. And then there's the infamous dowel pin. So it's still in there. This is the front of the harmonic balancer, and the rubber seems to be intact and in fairly nice condition. But on the back side of the balancer, the rubber looks quite fatigued. So here it almost looks like there's maybe some of it missing. And here almost as though it's kind of bunched up. So now I want to loosen off the injector pump nut. And I'm actually not using this center part. So I've got it set on there, and I'll start tightening, see what happens. Huh. That wasn't so bad. Initially I was going to use this puller, and then I decided against it because of this shape right in here where the bolt would want to go, somewhere in here. And I thought of it later, well actually I could have used the other side as well where it's flat. So it's just a tapered press fit shaft, and it even has a keyway, but the key is not used. Right down in there, there's 2. And then there's 2 right here. And then there's one down in there, and right across from it there's another one right down there. And so I want to remove this fuel line as well. And let's see, there's an oil line right there. And this fuel line, I think I can leave it in place. The other end is actually attached to a rubber fuel line, which is just cut and it's hanging somewhere in this area. So I think that can just come along. So that's one less fuel line that's open with potential debris getting in there. I think this pump is ready to come out now. I was going to remove this fuel line, but I decided to leave it in place. What I did instead is I just loosened it off a little bit so that I could lift it out of the way here, and then I snugged it again. That way there's one less area for debris to get into the pump. So on this end, this is where the fuel comes out. This is where the line attaches to. And this is not the right thread. I've just got it barely into that thread to keep the help keep the debris out of there. So it needed a little bit of persuasion to get off of the studs. So I used this little pry bar right here. So I was prying in here very gently. I don't want to break anything. And then with my other hand I was lifting and pulling on the pump, and then together I was able to get it off the studs to the point where it is now. So I'll put the camera on the tripod. I think this pump should lift out of there now. So that was unsuccessful. So down in there, so here's that fuel line that I left in place. So the end of it is right about over there, and so the hose is, you know, it's still kind of rigid right there, and it's on the other side of the filter, and plus the, you know, over here it's getting up next to the filter assembly as well. So this time it was successful, and I ended up removing the entire fuel filter assembly, and if I had just removed the canister and the filter, that likely would have been enough room as well. However, I'm in the process of doing more disassembly on the engine, so I'd like to remove the cylinder head and the bottom end, you know, crank, pistons, rods, and do the seals and so that kind of thing. Anyway, so it's out of there now. After the injector pump was out, then I also removed the lift pump, which is here. You can see the rod there that runs on the camshaft, and these wires here are for the fuel heater. There's also a pre-filter. The lift pump, it gets mounted here. So then the camshaft, you can see the cam inside there. I don't see any unusual wear on that cam. So I found some loose fasteners, and one of them was right here, one of the main mounts for the injector pump, and that nut was completely loose, and the other one seemed to be okay. And also, this is an important bracket here. It's the rear support for that injector pump, and you can see that is loose. So if the mounting, so if that mounting bolt would have completely worked its way out, then the back of the injector pump would have lost its support, and it's possible that the housing could eventually crack because the support is gone in the back. So interesting things, and good to catch these before there's more problems. Anyways guys, thanks for checking in.